Perfect. Joe, how are you?
Paul, what's going on, man?
Just having a fabulous day. How about yourself?
Everything's good. I thought for a minute there that you were going to come out of that frame.
I mean, I
Wouldn't that be
kind of can't.
cool?
It's slightly scary only because I had a friend recently share a video of like Halloween coming up, and they had a like well, I don't know, one of the movies where the girl with the long hair just like comes out of the picture frame and like,
Yeah,
attacks you thing, The Grudge or something. And
yeah,
I was like, yeah, I mean that's cool, but like that's a no for me. So yeah.
yeah. No, that would be no bueno. Yeah, maybe I'm getting into that Halloween brain, but yeah, when I was a kid, I could do horror movies, but now, man, I'm going to be 52 soon, and I've seen
Okay.
enough news and things that are already scary that aren't movies that I'm good. I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Yeah.
And
I don't need my just body to like, I don't know, have just that sort of response, right? Like that, it's not
yeah.
trauma, but just like that. Feel just like I like calm and slow and like roller coasters, but like
Yes.
just action movies and like chaos and like the world's coming to an end. Like, nah, I'm just gonna have some ice cream and like I'll read a book, right? I'll do
Yeah.
more podcasts, right? Like, what are you gonna do? So
That's
yeah.
it. Yeah. It's like it just rattles the cage of your psyche. It's like, come on, I'm good. And a lot of the modern ones are like mental too. It's like it
Yeah.
used to be as a kid, it was all this physical and gore, like Friday the 13th. But now it's this, they dig into your subconscious and do like just it's crazy, you know?
Yeah. I hear you.
So where are you located?
Right now, physically, I'm in Austin, Texas. I will be moving to Nashville. So in
Okay.
well, 2 weeks or so. What
Okay.
about yourself?
I'm in Kansas City, Missouri.
Okay, cool. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's yeah, Austin's the new capital of the world.
It is. I've been here 5 years. It's been a great experience. Also, yeah, I've been kind of feeling to have a new one. So we're gonna have a new one. So
Yeah, right on, man. Well, whenever you're ready, I come from jazz radio. I tend to dive right in. So if you're good to go, we can hop in.
I'm great to go. So yeah.
Wonderful. Paul, great to meet you. Thank you, sir. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Yeah, Joe, great to be here and just chat with you. Read and listened to some of your stuff and just excited to be part of it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm too. So before we get into your life as a serial entrepreneur, I want to know, I know we're getting tired of the COVID thing, but it was such a momentous thing to survive the pandemic and it affected all of us in a myriad of ways. How did you get through it and how did it change the way that you do things now?
ooh, I love that question in 2024 because we've typically forgotten about it, right? Or we spend a minute on it and we're like, oh yeah, those times. So, so I was in Austin with that. I had a, dog at the time and had a roommate, right? And so what I really found, at least in Austin, it was a little different where so the bars were sometimes open, and we could somewhat do some social things, but the biggest thing was one, myself, my mindset, and then also like my community, right? And so, for myself, it was then like, okay, like how am I evaluating my current, situation, right? Job, health, wealth, spirituality type thing, right? And then seeing what I wanted to change. At the time, I was working at Charles Schwab. It was not a fit for me, and was like, by golly, let's find a different position. And so, went through that process. And I was fortunate enough to, from a mindset perspective, not have all hope go lost, right? And what I mean by that is the company I was working at before Charles Schwab, instead of like cutting people's salary or cutting people, they cut people's salary. So everyone got like a 10% reduction. And it really kept people like up and moving and like, hey, like I kind of stubbed my toe, but I didn't break my arm, right? And
Yeah.
so it's that perspective of like, wow, like I have gratitude to like show up to a well, not show up to a job, to be on a job on a Zoom camera, right? And we did some creative things with happy hours and things like that, right? So that like mindset piece is huge to then also lead into the things that I like was doing. And wanted to kind of have my future to be. I'm very intentional on my life and who I am and how I show up. And I have that all plastered through my brand of the Investor's Guide to Joy. But it was a reflection moment of like, what are the next 3 years of my life, right? And I love the 3 year kind of reflection. And then, yeah, really the last thing on it was, yeah, just the community. So I tubed the river in San Marcos like probably 8 times. I became an unofficial tour guide because I had like 12 like inflatable tubes that we would, have and would be social distance because we're in these tubes, right? And just, going down the river. And so, in a lot of ways, again, it's a moment, an opportunity of like gratitude of like, hey, I can't do that, but I can do this, right? And even for today, 2024 and beyond, it's like, hey, I have this, bad job or bad relationship or bad, thing. Like the human mind naturally goes to negativity because we have scarcity, just so we can survive, right? Like that's our natural human instinct. However, overcoming that to then say, hey, like, what do I want to feel? What do I want to think? What do I want to believe? Right now, I feel sad, but I really want to feel happy. Well, great. Could I maybe give myself permission to feel happy? And that really helped me through COVID. I really also don't listen to the news or even the weather, I'm going to be honest. And I really just rely on other people to tell me stuff, and then maybe I'll go check it. But again, I'm really focused on my community, myself, and my mindset, and things that really maybe conflict or impact are challenging. And it's not to say I'm ignorant to different perspectives or different things, but even like hurricanes going on right now, like that's a big challenge. I also just don't want to spend my time and focus like on that thing because as a person and a man of faith, like the right things I believe will be done, and even through destruction, like there is beauty. And also like God's called me to do certain things in my life, so let's focus on those things too. So really appreciate the question because like I said, it's been a minute.
Yeah,
So
it certainly has. So if we look at the book of your life, there's software, there's a software company, you've done real estate, brokerage, you're a podcast host, you got the investment guy, there's all these things. But if we get to the essence, the marrow of what you do right now, and I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids is curious and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do
yeah,
you answer them?
yeah. So I would simply say that I help people increase their income and experience more joy. I love building with Legos, and so that's how I got involved in software. And I love helping people, and I believe business is the best way to help people get what they want. And I get to then also create and build, right? But there's a quick underlying story of when I was, I don't know, call it 8. I took these like Hot Wheel cars and like built this long train of them, and I was like, "Oh, they're in a traffic jam, Mom." My mom was like a principal and a bunch of high positions in education. And I was like, look, Mom, this is your car, right? And I'm going to make in the future, I'm going to invent a car that turns into a helicopter. And that way you can fly home sooner and you can spend more time with me, right? And so the overall concept of just like being that kid who like wants to build with Legos, who wants to spend more time like with their mom and dad and do the fun things is ultimately what I believe as adults, like we also should do. And so the ability to educate and inform based on mindset and different investments and how to grow their wealth in a way that's not crippling to their own greed is just something that's really exciting to me. So that's like the third grade version, right? And then, now that we've finished the class, right, I wanted to share that, that other piece and why I'm doing it because I've just experienced both sides and I like being the 10-year-old with a credit card, right? Like that's fun. So
Yeah. So ultimately, what was your vision to grow up and become when you were in grade school?
But what I was recorded saying is that I wanted to be a paleontologist. My
Okay.
dad was a volunteer paleontologist at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. He has probably 1,000 fossils in there. His name's Michael Graham. You'll see some stuff, right? But he was a database administrator for his career. I really found that like I wanted to be like him, and so I ended up basically going into software because it just aligned with the fact that I didn't need to be maybe somewhere physically. It had the ability to grow and scale. And again, it reminded me of Legos. And even with raising funds today for oil and gas, I have a oil shirt on today.
Yeah.
But it's just to say, like, I just build digital products and experiences and education, kind of agnostic of the industry. So,
So are you originally from Denver?
yes, born, raised, only really left for, travel and abroad until I moved. So,
Okay. I just was in Estes Park about 3 weeks ago. So
oh,
it's,
cool.
yeah,
Okay. For
yeah.
what?
I just went up we had friends that were up there and we went to the Stanley and it was really
Okay.
weird to see it. Well, I saw a magic show in the basement of the Stanley and it was, They had like a whiskey tasting thing. It was just kind of an excursion. And, coming from Kansas City, we have no contours. So to go out in the mountains and hung out in the Rocky Mountains for a while, it's
Yeah.
unreal. It's a different world.
Yeah. Were the leaves changing colors and is it
Yeah, the
fall?
aspens were popping. They were yellow
Okay,
on the mountains. So
cool.
we hit that period before things and roads would start closing down in the upper elevations, you know?
Good. Okay. That's the best time to go. Another fun place to go is Colorado Springs. Have you been
Yeah.
there? Okay.
We,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, we went to Manitou Springs actually for
oh,
my
cool. Okay.
honeymoon in
Awesome.
2019. We were going to go to New Orleans, but there was
Yeah.
a hurricane brewing,
I
and
heard.
we diverted and went to Manitou Springs and loved that whole area.
Yeah. I've not yet been to Manitou, but two of my favorite things in Colorado Springs are the zoo, because you
Yeah.
can feed the giraffes and they have
Yes.
super unique animals.
Yes.
They also have really good crepes, but whatever. And then the other thing is the five-star resort of I'm blanking on the name. The Broadmoor.
Okay.
Broadmoor has an amazing Sunday brunch, all you can eat. Really just has a bunch of options and it's in a fancy place, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Uh, Beautiful environment, what have you. But there's also a really cool like restaurant before you go into the kind of experience that is the Broadmoor and the resort. It's called the Golden Bee, and so they
Okay.
have these little patches. Think of like Boy Scout, Girl Scout kind of things, right? They take the kind of tape off and they throw them at you when you come in. Only one, you only get one. And so it's just like a cool thing. But I'm be honest, the three times that I've been there, I either haven't gotten a bee or they person was new and so they couldn't stick it or figure it out. So
Yeah.
just a fun experience of additional things beyond just staying at like a five-star resort. It's these sort of small pieces that are really cool. I also have
That's
not
cool.
gone to the bowling alley yet at the Broadmoor.
Yeah.
It's not on the bucket list, but just yeah, if anyone's out there, check it out. Let me know how it is and if it's
Totally.
as cool as I think it is. So.
Yeah. I need to get out there for sure. We'll definitely be back out there. Colorado's a special place for us, so definitely. So let me ask you this. In your life, you're obviously highly driven. Who's been
Mhm.
the hero? Who's been the inspiration for you?
So it used to be. So this is an interesting thing to reflect on. It used to be my like unhealed self. And what I mean by that is both my parents worked, super hard and long hours if that kind of wasn't apparent. So in a lot of ways, I kind of grew up myself. They were in their 40s when they had me. So also, kind of just like, yeah, you're a kid, like, go do stuff, right? And so that really, grew me into a piece of being self-sufficient and what have you. But it's to say that I really found achievement and accomplishment gained love and affection and time and praise from my parents. And so for the longest time, up really until 2021, I was very much like, have to do this, have to, all these things, right? Because then hey, that's awesome, you did great kind of stuff. And also they then told people, right? Even when I was 18, I ran a residential painting business for 2 years. At the height of it, I managed 15 people. My parents actually helped me paint a little bit too, which is a different story. But they're just very proud and helpful and supportive. But it was very much like I need to prove to my parents that I'm worthy and beneficial and pay attention to me. What I really found is like this unlocked version of myself of now who and what am I doing it for and what inspires me. And it's the concept of Matthew McConaughey, like his thing of like, my hero is the person in 5 years of sorts, as well as it's this idea of who is the meant to be me. And what I mean by that is there's this concept of like when you get to the pearly gates and whether you're faith driven or not, just like when you end your life, right? Like were you able to achieve the highest and best version of yourself? Not in terms of accumulating the most amount of money, but just like how many people came to your funeral and how you poured into people and how you impacted the world. And there's this phrase for my professional business fraternity that I, desire to have on my tombstone, or maybe it's on a piece of paper if I'm cremated. The world was better because he dwelt upon it.
Yeah.
So that sort of concept is really inspiring to me. And it's this idea of being a director in your life as opposed to just the main character. And it's like, oh, what's Paul doing today? What's Paul doing in their life? Like things like that. And so it's been a fascinating polarness of like that anxious, stressed, worried, concerned parents pay attention to me. And now it's am I paying attention to myself? Am I being my most authentic and true self? And so, yeah, I love that question because it really shares my healing journey. And it took some time. And also, the unlocking piece, just to share, was because I invited people along the way.
Yeah.
I invited my parents to basically do this investment with me for a short-term rental, and then said, "Hey, do you want to help me pick out like the colors and the couches and things like that?" And Joe, I kid you not, I have seen my parents smile more in the past 3 years because we bought that property in 2021 in 3 years than I have in my entire life. And
Wow.
it's because I invited them along the way, showed them like there's more to life than just the retirement and the once a time travel and things like that. And I've really embodied that even with traveling. I was in Costa Rica for a month and I invited 16 different people along. They came in different intervals and stuff. And so just doing more things for people, including yourself, was really that difference in unlock. And now, I've kind of explained how I've been today and think today. So.
Wow, that's great. So, if you could meet one entrepreneur alive on the planet right now that you find inspirational and spend some time with them, who would it be?
So I love that question because one thing I'm not a believer of is like meeting your heroes in some aspect
Yeah.
because you're always like disappointed. And not in a bad way, maybe in a bad way, but just like being sit down and like tell me all the stuff and they're like, yeah, sure, I got an hour with you. Like I'll tell you some things, like what have you. So um that's a very tough question. I think what that's alive today too. I think so someone who's recently uh, yeah, I think truly and authentically, I'd like to spend more time with Paul Hutchinson.
Yeah.
He is the main founder, maybe only founder of Sound of Freedom, which is an amazing movie, and he wrote a book about it. He helped grow a $20 billion fund that then was sold, and I think is now at 50. But just who he is as a person today, right now, he used to be Paul Effin Hutchinson, right? And he kind of, I've heard some stories about that, right? Now he's like, yeah, I'm Paul Hutchinson. It's
Yeah.
like, and he's doing retreats and like all this, stuff. So that would be someone that I might text him later to say, hey, let's get to know each other more because this is a
Yeah.
pretty new relationship. But
Yeah.
like that's I think more curious to me is like where I'm at in my journey of like, hey, I really need someone who's a very good family mentor or whatever kind of like thing, right, along the way, not just like a hey, Elon Musk, like I just want to be, around you. Like I believe there's books for that and videos for that, right? But I want to be right where I need to be, not where I like want to be. If that
Got it.
also it was easy to follow. So
Yeah, totally makes sense. So, in all of these endeavors that you do, what gets you out of bed every day? What motivates you to do this work and to evolve as a human?
ooh, good. I love these questions because really giving me good opportunity to reflect on life. Where before 2021, it was be that kind of millionaire financial flexibility. Before 30, I'm 30, but it was also to buy my parents a house in some fashion. Well, we did that in 2021 with the short-term rental. It's in Canyon Lake. It's a beautiful property. It's been so fun. Um, Now it's to say that like inspiration of like the future, version of me, right? The director of like, hey, I'm gonna wake up, at this time, or I'm going to wake up a little bit later because I've had a lot of different things or what have you. So it's knowing what I need or what I want to do the next, or well, I guess that morning, right? That day that really gets me out of bed. Hey, today is like a really big podcast day, so I'm excited to talk to a bunch of people and learn from them and share some of my stories and hear some of their stories too, right?
Yeah.
And so knowing that is very settling and secure, and there's gratitude around it. And it's not anxious or stressed or worried because otherwise it's like, what gets you out of bed? Like, oh, well, I have nothing to look forward to. It's like, well, plan the night before. What could you do? Try things, stuff like that. And I was so caught in that sort of space that now it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to try this day, right? And so that's been a beautiful thing to focus on and just be grateful for and have small things to look forward to, whatever it is. Even if there's nothing on the calendar, I'm a big
Yeah.
calendar guy. It's like, hey, today the one thing I really want to do is this, and then everything else that happens around it is cool, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you spoke about a younger version of you, and I'm curious if you did have a dream tonight and ran into a younger version, an 18-year-old version, and you could
Yeah.
give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you gained. What advice would you give that young version of you now?
So I'm on the alumni council of my fraternity that is at the University of Austin, Texas. Not that I went to UT, but it's just where I've wanted to give back. So I talked to a lot of men who are at this sort of thought place, right? I also have three nieces and two nephews, so this comes up a lot. I love to just share like, oh my gosh, you should really do, and then think, and then read, right? Um, so what I would first do is simply ask like where are they at? What's the biggest problem or greatest opportunity that they have in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And then pour into that or make a connection or something like that. If they ask, right? Like, oh, it seems like if you were connected to someone, in marketing, that would really help you to, give you an understanding of your career. Yeah, that actually really would. Okay. Well, was that something that you would like a connection on? Yeah, I really would. Well, amazing. Let's do that, right? And that's also to say, like, I've seen I don't know, call it 6 or 10 year old, right? That goes to I don't know, call it McDonald's or Wendy's, right? And they either go to their parents and they're like, hey, I want this, no, give me this, right? Or the parents like, okay, well, tell them what you want to order, right? And I had that mother who was kind of like, okay, like what do you think we should do? How should we do it, right? And so really kind of like teaching that individual to not necessarily like fish, but just like have that perspective of when to go fishing, how to
Yeah.
go fishing, what even fish should they catch, and not just like, oh, you're in marketing, you should go digital marketing because it's the best career. No, I'm personally against that type of like advice or thought because it's their life. And so I actually wrote about this in a co-authored book I did with Kevin Harrington, who's one of the original Sharks and founded As Seen on TV. And in that book, I talked about like you should take your mentor's like advice, but not like your mentor's actions,
Yeah.
because you probably don't need or want their actual life. You just want some sort of version of it. And so that sort of balance is really important, and not just also telling kids and other people like go do this, but really listening and understanding. That also grows me too. And I found that through podcasting and through coaching,
Yeah.
and would really help them just get to that next stage, or maybe it's just pouring into them and encouraging them to be like, wow, it really seems like you have it all figured out right now. That's incredible. Like, keep doing that, right? Like that could be the advice, if you will,
Yeah.
right? And so that's just my perspective of how to, share.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been quite successful up to this point in your life. When you look back on everything that you've done and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Years ago, yeah, I would definitely say riddle all these accomplishments and we'd spend 15 minutes telling you all these things I've done, right? You can look at my LinkedIn or I have a website to see some of the stuff I've done, right? Um, Biggest thing that I'm most like proud of in terms of accomplishments is the times and the depth that I've bet on myself. That I felt the intuition on doing something or saying something. Because in those moments, that's when I feel most alive and most excited because it is me and I absolutely love me and care for me and enjoy me being me. So.
So at the end of the day, speaking of you being you, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So I believe that I am, or essentially was created to, do great things, and whether or not those great things are acknowledged for myself, right? Like, oh, Paul did this, right? Or I helped inspire or create something that then, helped someone else, right? Maybe I built a building and it was named after someone else or something. Again, that kind of like legacy piece. I just believe that I'm, meant to be a builder and a creator, and a foster of knowledge, and someone who can really just, again, expand this idea of like the investor's guide to joy of just, I am not the best person to have joy or show joy. Most of the time, people are like, are you having fun? Like, is everything okay? Because I'm just a very analytical in my head person. So I by no means am like the poster child of it, but I like by the grace of God and with my like just brain will create these things and do these things to help other people feel and experience that. And I feel an experience too. I just don't always show it. Or other people don't seem to think I have thing or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's to say like I'm just gonna live in my true self, and sometimes I'm just content. And that content looks like I'm, have that, sad face or mad face or something. It's just like, no, like I'm just chilling and thinking. So staying and true to myself is definitely important. Regardless of other people think, even though I like their inputs.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So let me ask you this. We get off this call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go anywhere in the history of time and see one event, and it won't affect anything. You just get to witness it. What would you love to have seen happen?
Ooh, okay. So I only get to witness it. All right, I'll also follow those rules. I think that what would be something incredible to um there's a couple thoughts that are coming to mind that I'll just share. Like the idea of human ingenuity that's beyond our own capacity and understanding are fascinating to me, right?
Yeah,
Again, like how did someone build that or create that? So specific examples I'm thinking of like are the pyramids of Giza, right? Like,
yeah,
oh, here's how it started, and then they did this and like that kind of stuff. Some of it might even be like, conspiracy theory of like, oh, nope, we definitely landed on the moon. We definitely, humans built the pyramids, right?
yeah,
Not that I think, we didn't in those cases, but just seeing like how that was actually done, I think is eye-opening because oftentimes we see the end result. Hey, you've done a bunch of podcasts, you've done this for a number of years. Like, how did you do that? Well, you recorded podcast by podcast. They built the pyramid brick by brick. And
yeah,
sometimes I just needed those like reassurances of like, oh, that's how they did it. They just did it 1,000 times.
yeah,
And I think it would just be so cool to just see some of those wonders of the world just go from nothing to something because that's something like I'm doing. And I think that's what all humans want to do. Even like your background on the video, right? Like just like the US and all these different colors, like, what that was created from like a human mind. And I think especially as we go towards more an AI intelligent piece, which I respect in aspects but don't love in all, it's again coming down to the human element of like, oh yeah, humans did this
yeah.
thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. So if anyone wants to indulge in your world, your podcast, hire you, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
Yeah. My website, The Investor's Guide to Joy, is the best place to find articles on mindset. I have ebooks on different investment strategies. I also have, yeah, a podcast to your point, interviewing capital raisers, investors, and tax professionals, really just giving resources and information to help people increase their income and experience more joy. You can certainly find me on all the, socials you could ever want. Maybe not really Snapchat, but Facebook and LinkedIn are the best, and then looking to grow Instagram. But I really just love connecting with people. So if someone prefers, carriage pigeons, right? Send those my way, and would love to just connect or support or just be humans and human. So just like we're doing today, we're human.
Absolutely. 100%. Hey, man, have a great move to Nashville. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your story and best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate being on, sharing, and even just reflecting too. I love how you show up and love, what you do and how you share. So thank you also.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Best of luck.
You bet.